thanks to KiwiCo for sponsoring today's video. More about them later. It is a rainy, muddy, messy, nasty, all of those adjectives day here on our farm, which has pretty much described all of February and all that's in the 10-day forecast. I'm not really complaining because this has also meant that it's been really warm, which means that we're able to spend tons of time outside. Even a few days we've had the window open, which is great. In the kitchen while I'm cooking, getting to air things out. We are doing morning chores and then I'm gonna head inside for some breakfast prep.
I got soaking wet noodles. My head got soaking wet.
If you were following along last fall, you might remember whenever I was freeze drying so many eggs because we were getting way more than we could handle. Well, then I ended up going through my first trimester. So yes, I am expecting another baby this summer. We're expecting another baby. We're very excited about it. I was able to get through some of the freeze-dried eggs, but there were times when I just needed to make something really quick and not reconstitute powdered eggs. Truly, they are not gross. They are totally fine. But if you've been pregnant, you understand. So now that I am well past that first trimester, I told my kids, I am not buying any eggs. Even if you want a fresh fried egg with the yolk intact, I'm not doing it until we are through every last bit of the preserved eggs. Now, lucky for them, the chickens are starting to lay again. So we actually are getting half a dozen or so eggs a day for those fresh eggs, but this still means that I need to use up a lot of freeze-dried eggs, and we still aren't getting enough for our family, so it's working out. One of my favorite things to make that I've been making over and over again is an einkorn Dutch baby or a sourdough Dutch baby. It's great because I can use freeze-dried eggs, but then I can also reconstitute the eggs with milk instead of water, so it ends up being a very protein-rich concoction. I have the recipe over on the blog. I double it, so I end up doing 3 cups of einkorn flour, 2 cups of the freeze-dried eggs, which ends up being a little more than a dozen. It's supposed to be a dozen eggs, but I just do 2 cups because I'm really trying to get rid of them. And then I do 2 cups of milk to reconstitute the eggs, and then another 2 cups of milk just for the recipe. Half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a 1/4 cup of sugar or honey. Then I preheat a cast iron skillet on the stove with some butter. Add the mixture to 2 large cast iron skillets because I double it. Put it in the oven until it's poofy at about 425 degrees, something like that. And we've just been eating this over and over. Sometimes we make a berry syrup like we did today with strawberries and honey. And then sometimes we just do syrup. It's so good. Now I am restocking my basket of eggs. Oh, I miss this so much. It's a beautiful, colorful addition to our kitchen that I missed all winter. I brought out a small basket and then realized I need a larger basket because we are actually getting enough eggs now to put them back out. I cannot wait until there's a bouquet of flowers next to it from the garden. I want to tell you a little bit about something that my kids love doing, especially in the winter. They get super excited about it year round, but for me as a parent, it's very nice to have something else on especially rainy, messy days like today that the kids can work on. KiwiCo is a monthly subscription box that makes really fun, hands-on educational projects for kids. We've been enjoying them for years now. I love them for a few reasons. One is that everything comes in the crate, so I don't need to run to the store and get additional items. It's something that challenges them, yet they can complete themselves. Our oldest daughter, Ruth, had the Eureka Crate, which teaches kids and kids at heart, because it's for ages 12 all the way up to 104 plus, any age older than 12, how to apply principles of science and math to engineer solutions and make awesome things they'll love and use every day. She made this lockbox that has a little key. I actually didn't even watch her put it together. It's something that she worked on for quite a while by herself. I love that the crates always teach something. They come with kid-friendly instructions and oftentimes an educational magazine. So for example, the Atlas crate, which our son Jude worked on, is for ages 6 through 11. It teaches kids about somewhere in the world, something about their culture, a recipe. There's usually multiple projects that go with each crate. Today we learned about Japan. A lot of times Even though it's for specific ages, like the Atlas crate works best for 6 to 11, most of the kids like to get in on it and read all of the material and learn something from it too. Theo, who's 15 months, enjoyed the Panda crate. It helps babies learn by playing, exploring, interacting with adults in their lives or older siblings. Our kids love playing with these with the younger kids too. Daniel had such a fun time with the koala crate. He had a camping theme this time, so we got to make a little fire and pretend to roast marshmallows. I love that they learn something, but they all just think it is the most fun. I think the kid who got the most excited about it was the 9-year-old who had the Tinker crate. He got to make a little contraption that sets up dominoes, and he's still playing with it every day. It was really fun to make, but then also to continue playing with. And it taught him something about science, the mechanics of something like that. So if you want to try KiwiCo out and support my channel, you can click the link in the description box below to get 50% off your first month. The link is kiwico.com/farmhouseyt. Again, visit that link and use the code farmhouse to get 50% off your first month. Today for lunch, we are going to do leftovers. Sometimes I get to this point where we have a whole bunch of little things. I have some bread sourdough bread, that's been sitting in the fridge for probably a week now, which I prefer to bake the bread fresh. So if we end up not getting to it, I'll just leave it in there until I'm ready to bake it, even if I fermented it already a while ago. This is also the way that whenever I make bread ahead of time, I'll make like 5 or 6 loaves, and then we just will bake it all throughout the week. So if you want to batch make bread once for a week of bread, you can do it. As I am filming this, it is Valentine's Day. I know it's past Valentine's Day now, but I didn't have any big plans for Valentine's Day. I can't really say that I ever totally do, but I have some kids who want to make sure that there are plans or at least something a little bit special for Valentine's Day. And so I usually will let them do a little bit of experimenting. Johanna requested that last time I got groceries that I got some strawberries and some chocolate because she really wanted to make chocolate dipped strawberries. So after feeding the starter, she is getting some boiling water on the stove to do a little bit of a double boiler situation here with the bowl and the chocolate so that she can dip some strawberries. And then I'm going to make some barbecue sauce to finish off that container of pork that I pulled out of the fridge. So I've told you guys a million times that I need to get a whole bunch more meat, but I have to work through all the cuts that I don't love. And so I cooked a couple of big country style ribs a few days ago. It makes not as tender of a meat as ribs does. The country style, it's more like pork choppy, if you will. So it's not exactly our favorite, but it does taste better with some barbecue sauce. We've been eating on this for a while. Now we are finally ready to finish it off, but I don't have any more barbecue sauce. So I did a mixture of some ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, honey, brown sugar, and vinegar. And I'm going to smother the pork in that, throw it in the oven in the glass dish. I had some leftover mac and cheese from the first time we ate this pork because I'm just trying to serve it barbecue style so people like it. I have some jalapeno cheddar sourdough, as I mentioned, which, again, it's been fermenting a little too long, but it is definitely still edible and it will smooth over the pork situation along with the mac and cheese. Come on, we can eat not our favorite meat when we're also having mac and cheese. For the mac and cheese, I will just cook up some organic noodles, pasta noodles. They're not homemade, they're just purchased. I try to keep a lot of those. And add in shredded cheddar, milk, butter. Sometimes I add in a few more ingredients like nutmeg and mustard, but sometimes I just keep it really basic, stir those ingredients together, and the kids always love it. Of course, salt as well. Now I need to go out and fill my 9x13 dish again with meat. This way I can keep working through those cuts. I'm pulling out deer ribs, beef ribs. If you've ever ordered a whole beef or you've gone hunting, you might know that ribs that aren't from pork are not very good. There's not a ton of meat on them. So I don't love to cook them, but I figured if I throw in several packs at once, then pull it from the bone, it'll be almost like a roast. So today when I'm editing this video, I actually have all of that meat in the oven since about 8 a.m. this morning on 300 degrees with some broth and seasonings. Later, after I get done with this, I'm going to go in, let it cool, and then I'm going to pick all of the little bits of meat from the bone, because that's the problem with ribs from beef and deer, is there's just not that much meat. I'm going to smooth it over yet again by adding it over some organic chips with shredded cheddar and make it into nachos. So we'll cover it with sour cream and salsa. I think everybody's going to be completely fine with it, even though if you're just getting like a piece of deer rib and tearing into it, it's really not that delicious. Okay, I'm not picky, but it's just not my favorite thing. But we don't waste food around here. We find ways to use it. As I was blabbing about undesirable meat cuts, did you see me pull the most delicious linen out of the dryer? I pre-washed and dried this gorgeous linen that I found on Etsy. I have been in the market for a fabric to redress the windows, again adding some more color. We did repaint the cabinets, and I plan to share a whole kitchen update video. I have a few more things I want to do. I have some paint I want to put on one of the walls, or a couple of the walls rather. We have a new vinyl mat under the kitchen table. I have some art, and something else I wanted to do for this little makeover was sew some new pinch pleat curtains. It took me a while to find the right fabric, but I really think that this one does the trick. I was going for something that had a little color, that had a country vibe, not too country, not too modern. It's a really weird balance with my style, as I'm sure it is for most people. You get the idea of kind of what you're going for, and sometimes it's a bit tricky to achieve it, but this fabric I'm really loving. I started by measuring the curtains that I already have up there, because I do like the length, the cafe curtain halfway up length. And then I just folded the fabric in half to visualize how wide it would be and what that would mean for the pleats. So I wasn't really putting the pleats in the right spots. I was just more making sure how many pleats I could put in. And spoiler alert, I end up still putting in too many pleats and taking a few out. I decided on 5 pleats. That was the right width for this. So first I am taking the ends that will be the top and the bottom of the curtains, pressing them over a 1/4 inch, and then an additional 3.5 inches. I wanted a nice wide hem on the top and the bottom so that I could have the pleats be within that bulky fabric to create a bit more of a pleat, so that there'd be a lot of weight there. I have 2 layers of fabric instead of just one. And then I also, just for a more finished look, wanted the same thing for the bottom. Then I go over to my sewing machine. I'm just hemming the sides. I don't usually press whenever it's just a simple 1/4 inch. Like this one is just a 1/4 inch over twice to hide the raw edge inside. I don't usually press that. I just eyeball it because it is so easy for me to eyeball, especially with a checkered fabric like this, because I can just do like 2 checks over and 2 checks over that. And then after the sides, I do the tops, which I did measure and press because I wanted something so specific, like 3.5 inches. And I wanted to make sure after I pressed it that it was the right length, which I was going for a finished curtain length of 27 inches. So now I have 2 sides hemmed at a 1/4 inch, and then I have the 3.5 inch on the top and bottom. So I had to add a total of 8 inches to the length, because I have the 1/2 inch over for the raw edge and another 3.5 inches on the top and the bottom. So times 2. So for a total of 8 inches. Now I am deciding pleat placement. The way to do this, no matter what size of curtain you're doing, is to start with the middle and then think about how many pleats you want and then dividing it like that. So if you're doing 5 or 7, it's really easy to do the 2 outsides, which I didn't go all the way to the outside with the pleat. I went 2 inches in the middle, and then fold the fabric from the outside pleats to the middle to find the halfway point between the middle and the outside pleat. That's for 5. Now, if you're doing 7, again, you divide it in thirds by doing the 2 outsides and the middle, and then you divide it in 2 in between those to create a total of 7. I find that it's a little bit easier with odds, probably so much so that I would just make it odd even if I didn't want to. Now, originally, like I said, I did 7 pleats. I hung it up and realized, nah, that's a little bit too pleated. So I pulled out a few of them. I was able to leave the 2 sides and the middles, and this was just on one. I only hung 1 curtain at a time so that I could be sure I liked it. So I only had to take out like 2 pleats and then put back in 2. But they're so easy, because essentially what you do, especially with checked fabric, is I did 2 checks for each inside and then 2 checks on the outside. So basically it's double folded with 2 checks on each outside. I think you can see what I'm talking about here in the video. It's kind of hard to describe. And then I just sewed around it like a little rectangle all the way to the bottom and out to really define that pleat, and then all the way back to the top. I swear, with sewing projects, it is so difficult to explain what I'm doing. That's why I try to create a lot of visual aids. I think if you are a sewer, you can see exactly what I'm doing here. It's a very, very simple project. This is something you could do in any room. It was fast. I got it done, both of these done in an afternoon, a cloudy afternoon, I might add. So it's kind of hard to see, but it was so simple and I love how it turned out. So much so that I'd really like to put some pinch pleats in some other rooms in our home. Like maybe the bathrooms would look nice with a couple of pinch pleat cafe curtains. You might remember I did an IKEA hack video a year or 2 ago where I pleated the top of those curtains and I used pleater tape. That's another option, but I didn't want so much bulk. I like these to be these breezy linen curtains for these cafe curtains, and I felt that adding the pleater tape, although it would take all the guesswork out of it, would be just too bulky. Whereas in the living room, I was going with a more formal look. I definitely was going for casual in this space. This actually was so easy. I was surprised I just kind of looked up some pictures of some of the curtains I liked, and then it was just really easy to figure out how to replicate them in my own home. Now we are making heart-shaped pizzas. Again, this was a child's idea, but it's real easy because we're just doing the sourdough starter pizza crust, which means that we put a pizza stone or a cast iron skillet or both or many of those, depending on how many kids or people you have cooking for. Preheat them in the oven at 500 degrees, spread it with sourdough starter or sourdough discard. It doesn't have to necessarily be fed. Ours was. And I just put it in a heart shape, added some olive oil, spices, and salt, baked it until it was crunchy, and then put on the sauce and the cheese. And then we even did some heart-shaped pepperonis. Now, they're not really pepperonis. We had some salami, and a couple of kids took them and cut them out into hearts to make these very fun and festive Valentine's Day pizzas. I hope that you enjoyed going along with me on this winter day. If you are curious about any of the recipes mentioned in this video, make sure to head to farmhouseonboone.com, and in the search bar you can put in sourdough pizza crust, jalapeno cheddar sourdough bread, einkorn Dutch baby pancake. I'll also leave links below. As always, thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.